panel the discussion, an objective and impartial view of the issues of interest to you. Nation Beat is on now.
Good afternoon, good evening, good day. Welcome wherever you are to today's special program to welcome to St. Lucia next week the president of the African Diaspora Development Initiative, Dr. Arikana Chihambori Kwao. And all of today's program will be aimed at preparing us for her arrival. She will be visiting on the 17th of November, and our efforts this afternoon will be aimed at preparing St. Lucia to not just welcome this world-famous ambassador, former ambassador of the African Union to the United States, but also to bring us up to date with what she's done. The African Diaspora Development Initiative, ADI, which she has established, what's it all about? There's a chapter in St. Lucia. Who's in it? What it's about? And you will notice we're wearing our puppies today. Today is also the 11th day of November, which is observed in the United Kingdom as Memorial Day for the historic reason that the Second World War ended on the 11th minute of the 11th hour of the 11th month of the year, and hence the 11th of November. But I'm not here alone. We have a panel in studio, and we also have other panelists online who will introduce right now. And first we go to Mr. Kofi Dovor. He's the president of the St. Lucia chapter of the African Diaspora Development Institute, ADI. And also with us is Ms. Althea Valmore, the secretary of the St. Lucia chapter of ADI. Also in studio is Jackie Cherubin Weeks, a member of ADI, a driving force, along with others of our ilk who will go that extra mile to do the things that need to be done to push the boat a little faster into the water. And online we have my friend from joining us out of Barbados, and I would like to get his name correctly. And he is Brother Anuel Berilia, and he's with the Barbados chapter of ADI. And Ambassador Chihambori Kwao is on a mission to the region to reconnect the African diaspora with the continent. And her Caribbean leg of that visit is to bring us up to the date with who we are, not just because we are African descendants and we belong to the diaspora, but more specifically because of the role that the region we know as the Caribbean, but which was then called the West Indies, played in the slave trade and the Middle Passage. And I would like to describe our discussion today, which doesn't have a central theme, but I have been thinking about it, and I think by the end of our discussion today, we will have said enough to describe what I would call a reversing of the Middle Passage. And those of us who went to school and studied the so-called Great Triangle will also know that the so-called Middle Passage was that one between Africa and the Caribbean that brought us here. And what ADI is all about is reversing that Middle Passage so that the African diaspora, which has been declared the 6th region of Africa, will reconnect with the continent from whence we cometh. So, to start us off, I'll ask Mr. Kofi Dovor to bring us up to date on who is Ambassador Chihombori Kwao and why is she coming to St. Lucia?
Thank you so very much, Brother Earl, and good afternoon to our viewers and listeners around the globe. My name is Kofi Dovor, the president of the St. Lucia chapter of ADDI. What is ADDI? ADDI is the African Diaspora Development Institute, ADI for short. ADI was formed by Her Excellency Dr. Arikana Chihombori Kwao. Dr. Arikana Chihombori Kwao was a former ambassador of the African Union to Washington, D.C. and to the Americas, a position she served in until 2019 when she had to relinquish that position. Immediately after, with the quest of people being aware of what she had been doing, ask Ambassador what is next. And so she decided to set up what we now know as ADI. And as we get into this conversation, I will go a little further to tell you what is the purpose of ADI, why are we here, and why do we all need to embrace ADI as we move forward.
And why is she coming here? Is she just coming here straight from the continent to return? Or because, like I said, my understanding is that she is part of a tour. So where else will she be going?
Okay, so she's coming to the Caribbean, and we have been fortunate to be the first leg of Caribbean outreach. So she comes to Barbados from the 15th of November, which is 4 days from now, and then to St. Lucia on the 17th of November. The purpose of her visit is primarily to promote and create the awareness of melanated people, as I like to put it, people of the Caribbean that form the 6th region, and also to kind of expand on the idea of the PAC, which is the Pan-African Congress, which is expected to take place in Zimbabwe in April 2023. The purpose of that PAC is one of the reasons why she's on this tour, to make sure the awareness is there. She can galvanize the momentum of persons of the 6th region to be able to be present at that and make some very important decisions for the 6th region.
And history has a way of connecting. In 1900, the first Pan-African Congress took place in London. And the Caribbean was represented by none other than a St. Lucian.
Wow.
Mr. Excuse me, his name will come up, but he was from La Clery, John Quinlan. Look it up, folks. Go online. John Quinlan, he wrote a book called The Earth a Plain, but he also wrote quite a lot making the case in 1900 at the Pan-African Congress in London, the very first one. But before that, in 1897, John Quinlan represented the millions of Africans, enslaved Africans, who 50 years after emancipation were saying, we ain't get our promise, we want to go back. And it was John Quinlan from La Clery who, in London, made the case before Queen Victoria at the Royal Commission on reparations.
Wow.
All of that, folks, is online now. Search John Quinlan, and we will see how the earth is not just a plane, but it's also a circle that brings yesterday, today for tomorrow. Althea Valmore, you are the secretary of the local ADI branch. We will go later into, like Kofi said, the mechanics of who who's in the branch, what it's all about, why it's here. But just to get us off, tell us something about the ADI St. Lucia connection with ADI Africa
Global.
in terms of, you must have a link there. And what are they saying to us? Is it a certain interest in the Caribbean that has brought about ADI and a Caribbean chapter comprising a St. Lucia chapter, or is it vice versa, that the Caribbean felt we needed to be recognized as part of the diaspora and therefore we were knocking on the continent's doors? How did this come about?
No, I think that Africa themselves, seeing that they need to move forward and they needed to embrace the diaspora, all black people around the world, because all black people originally came from Africa, and we have been disconnected from each other because of colonialism, and they realized that for them to move forward, we all need to unite and get together and look out for each other, because black people everywhere are discriminated against, oppressed, suppressed, disrespected. I think it's very important that we realize that a lot of the mistreatment that we get is not just because we are the descendants of slaves, but because people disrespect Africa as a whole. There are so many negative stereotypes about Africa and Africans, and we as African descendants, if we assist and are part of the movement that brings Africa back on the world stage and gets the level of recognition it deserves, we ourselves will also be respected. So it is as much in our interest as in their interest to elevate Africa, to understand Africans' history, its culture, and what our heritage is.
Thank you. And we go now to Jackie. Like I said, Jackie Cherubin Weeks is a member of the St. Lucia ADI branch. And Jackie, I was thinking one of the ways in which, if I had to introduce Ambassador Chihombori Kwao to St. Lucians listening, I would say that she's the sister that we all want. She's the mother we wish we had.
Yes.
She's the grandmother that today's internet generation can learn a lot from, in terms of the connection from where we came from to where we are, and the role of Africa in the development of the technology that we think was only discovered by Bill Gates and, and the others.
Yeah.
And the other reason, like I said, we are wearing the red poppies is because, like I said, of the contribution that so many thousands of West Indians went to England to help fight the war. And many died in England, many died at sea, many died as airmen. The cenotaph on the Derek Walcott Square has the names of those who died flying planes. The war cemetery at Shock has the names of the locals who died at war. And I remember growing up with my father taking me to the annual Memorial Day celebrations at the cathedral, and there would be scores of old soldiers like himself who fought in World War II. And Jackie was just drawing to my attention, unfortunately, that only 2 are left today. So Jackie, I'd like you to tell us, first of all, a bit about your appreciation for who Ambassador Arikana is, from what you've seen and heard about her. And secondly, take us into why you are so connected with the puppy.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to the viewers. First of all, I'll talk about the poppy first.
Yes.
Basically, my father and Mr. Cyril are the only ones left in St. Lucia. Cyril. And my father is Reginald Cherubin, and they're the only two soldiers left in St. Lucia. But of course, we have the widows. There are widows left as well. So this day on Sunday is always a very special day. It's actually the 11th, but we celebrate it on the Sunday closest to the 11th. And so Sunday is always very special for myself and my brothers, who we accompany my father to the square, you know, lay in the reef, and then go into the gardens, the botanical gardens, and then the reefs laid there too, and then to the cemetery, like you said, at Shock.
And following the police band through
following
the
the
streets.
band, and oh yeah, it's a grand affair, and it still is for me, even though I'm an older person now. And I'm very proud of my dad, because his military background is very special to him, and he recounts stories and stories and stories of when he was in the army. And even though he came from Grenada, but he came here when he was 18, you know, fell in love with my mom, you know, married, had 4 children, and lived here. So he's a St. Lucian, really. And so it's a very special day, and therefore the poppies. And I really urge people to give a donation to the people when you see the poppies being exhibited, because the soldiers, the ex-servicemen, and the widows still need a pension. There's no pension as such, so they still need to live and be taken care of. So that's why the poppies.
Okay.
Yes.
And Ambassador
Well,
Chihambori Kwao, your impression?
Ambassador Africana Chihambori Kwao. This is a lady that I've been following for the last 2 years, I think. I just came across her, I think it was on YouTube. I didn't know who she was, and then I found out that she was this ambassador, and I just listened to her speeches, watched her videos, and just admired this person, because she was always talking for us as black people. And even though she was in the position as an ambassador for the African Union to the United States or Washington and the Americas, she spoke about the colonial rule and the colonials still taking advantage of the Africans, and therefore we have to be conscious that we are African descendants. And in listening to her speak, I was so impressed by her. But I never knew about ADDI, A-D-D-I. I never knew anything that there was a chapter here. I never knew anything about that. I just loved this lady. And then 2 weeks ago, I think, Kofi, a friend of mine said to me, "You need to talk to Kofi." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "There's some organization he belongs to you'd be very interested in, and it has to do with Africa and whatever." But the person didn't really give me all the information. So I called, and Kofi was having a meeting in 10 minutes, and they sent me the link, join the meeting. And I joined, and then I'm hearing all this stuff, and I'm saying, well, this is very interesting. This is right up my alley. And then I didn't really know who they were talking about. They kept saying the ambassador is coming, and they're preparing for the ambassador. And then after, he sent me a link, and I said, "But that's the lady that I've been following." Oh my gosh, I was just so intrigued, and I called him back, and I said, "Kofi, that's the lady. And he said, "Yeah, that's who we've been talking about." I'm like, wow, I'm really in, I'm busy, but I'm going to be as much help as I could with you guys, preparing for her visit. And I'm so happy that she's coming here, because I think especially a lot of young people need to hear her. The energy that she puts out, the topics, the way she communicates with people, and young people, she loves young people. And I think that our young people need to meet her, need to hear her when she's doing her public speech, which I'm sure Kofi will talk about in a while. And to learn more about who we are. Because I'll tell you, Earl, I mean, we had history, but we really didn't know the real story.
It was his story.
It's his story, that's right. And when I think that a lot of our people, older people and younger people, need to be more conscious and understand where we came from, where our heritage came from, and that there's lots out there for us that belongs to us, actually, that we never really make a claim to. And Ambassador Arikana is now giving us that opportunity with ADDI, with establishing different parts of the Caribbean, and also affording us this opportunity. I hope I'll be able to go in April next year to go to Zimbabwe to attend this conference and put forward ideas of our own as well to establish certain things in Africa for us.
Folks, but before we go, you want to say hello to your dad?
Hi, Dad. I know he's watching. I left him and I said, NTN, Daddy, watch it. So, happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day, Mr. Sherwin, and to Mr. Haynes Cyril, anybody in the family listening now, find a way to communicate with him. He will understand, he will smile, he will remember. Folks, we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we will introduce our fellow panelists in Barbados, Emmanuel, and during the rest of the discussion, I will find a point at which to make the case for reparations for the Caribbean, West Indian people who died fighting for Britain, and the widows that Jackie just spoke about are still clamoring to get the kind of assistance that the families of other British troops who died are collecting, but is not available and has not been available to the families of deceased Caribbean fighters for Britain in the Second World War, hundreds of whom are still alive. But if only 2 are left in St. Lucia, the numbers could be less than we think, and we need to be able to honor them. So reparations for them is something we need to also put on the table. You're viewing NTN, our discussion in preparation for welcoming Ambassador Arikana Chihombohi Kwao to St. Lucia. We will be right back.
People of African descent light the world with a rich culture and shared history, with strength, determination, and resilience, with fearless calls for equality and justice. They light the world despite the legacy of enslavement, racism, and underdevelopment. For women of African descent, there is a double burden. However, injustice and inequality is not fate, not set in stone. People of African descent are rising up against injustice and calling everyone to end hatred and division, which diminish all of us in the end. We can only face such challenges once we band together. And on this International Day for People of African Descent, let us agree to make racism history, to come together with one heart, and to leave no one behind. The just and inclusive future we dream of depends on it.
extremely appreciative for everything that you have done for me. Since leaving the office, there has been an outcry about what's next, Ambassador. Well, I have good news for you. I want you to know I have now registered an entity that is called the African Diaspora Development Institute. This entity is going to be a one-stop shop for everything African. This entity is where we, the children of Africa in the diaspora, are going to converge and discuss issues pertaining to our continent. In particular, in view of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is going to be implemented this year, it is imperative that we come together and speak with one voice, because if we do not, those from the East and those from the West are ready with their funding and their expertise to take that place that has your name. The African diaspora, we cannot afford to not be on the table. We cannot afford to be left out. Africa belongs to us. And as such, we must drive the continental agenda for Africa. The Institute is going to be concentrating on 5 major projects. The first project is the database. Naturally, as you can understand, without the database, nothing can move. Secondly, it is the Diaspora Fund. This is in the process of being registered. I'll keep you posted when the finance team advises me as to where they are in the process. Thirdly, the Legacy Project. We are taking a page out of the Jewish playbook. Our children will not know Africa through osmosis. We must make the connection. We, the elders, have a responsibility to connect our children. Through the Legacy Project, we are going to be fundraising in order to give a round-trip ticket to students who are in college during the 3rd or 4th year to spend a month at a university in Africa. To whom much is given, much is expected. We're also going to be raising funds to help our youth who are struggling on the continent. We will be offering them interest-free loans of up to $500. In the process, we're also going to assist them in making sure that whatever project they choose to embark on succeeds. We're also going to be giving interest-free loans of up to $500 to women on the continent. Also, monitoring their projects to make sure that whatever they choose to embark on is a success. And lastly, our flagship project is the African Diaspora Centers of Excellence, aka Wakanda. This is going to be funded outside the Institute by the fund. The African Diaspora Fund is the one that's going to be investing in the continental projects. A team of diaspora finance people are going to be making a decision in terms of which projects the fund is going to be funding. It is an exciting time, and I hope we can all pay attention to what is going on at the Institute, and I will be giving you live updates as often as I need to do so. Welcome aboard. On this website, you're going to find all the information that you need in order to find out more about the amazing, wonderful things the Institute is going to be involved in. Now, remember, the Institute is going to be as successful as we make it. So I'm asking all of you to visit the website. Be sure to be part of the database. Please sign up. Also, be sure to pay your membership. We cannot do all of these projects that we want to get involved in, particularly the Legacy Project, where we are going to be giving round-trip tickets to our children in the 3rd and 4th years of college. So as you can see, it's an amazing time for us African diaspora. We really are at a point of do or die. If we do not come together this time for the sheer survival of us, then let's do it for our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. I'm looking forward to so working with you. This is what I've come up with. This is an answer to your call. For those who thought I was just going to disappear, I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere. The diaspora must go home. The diaspora are the missing ingredient for us to be able to build a sustainable Africa. Besides, our heads of states have spoken loud and clear. The children of Africa in the diaspora must come home. I have no doubt in my mind that we are all going to come together and say, divisions, no more. The legacy of slavery, no more. The legacy of colonization, no more. No more shall we continue to be divided. No more shall we continue to have self-hate. This is our time. We're going to learn from other diaspora groups in this country, and we will stick together like super glue, because we, the beautiful, the intelligent, the sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible children of one mother Africa, we are going to join hands and go home. We are answering the call from our African heads of states. Let's do it.
Ambassador Arikana Chihambori Kwao, founder, president, and CEO of the African Diaspora Development Institute. I have a way of describing it as initiative. Yes, it was her initiative, like you heard, but it is right now an institute. And you have just seen what Jackie told us inspired her. That lady is coming our way to Barbados, St. Lucia, and Antigua, and we're preparing for her. Let us go now to Emmanuel, our colleague in Barbados, who is associated with the Barbados branch of ADI. The St. Lucia branch was launched on the 31st of August, International Day for people of African descent, in a ceremony that Ambassador Chihambori Kwao participated in out of Zimbabwe, and she's heading for Barbados. So, Brother Emmanuel, tell us about preparations in Barbados and what we can expect to hear coming out of Barbados's visit by Ambassador Chihambori Kwao.
Can't hear. Can't hear.
You're mute. I think your mic is muted.
Yes, there you go. Okay. Yeah, technology. Greetings again to everyone that are viewing at St. Lucia in the wider Caribbean, and also here in Barbados from across the world. Where do we begin? That's just the reality. I think that the sisters that spoke earlier spoke to the fact that they were looking for a voice, and a voice arrived, and the ambassador, without question, has brought a newness to the Caribbean. Many have come before, many have shared before, but there's a momentum going on across the globe right now. There seems to be almost like a dash for the Caribbean. And here we are as a people looking to find a way to return home, and someone is saying, we're here, let's build a bridge together. And in essence, that's what the ambassador is saying. And what she's striving to achieve is, when they say the diaspora, of course, they include this side of the world. But the reality is the Caribbean is a unique place, has always been a unique place. And I think this is time for the Caribbean to get the recognition that outside of the sand and the sea, most people hear the Caribbean, they think of sand and sea. Most people think of Barbados, they think of sand and sea. And what we are saying now is, well, we're a little more than sand and sea. We are the children, we are the ones that were here before. You know, definitely got to big up and shout out all indigenous beings and original beings in this neck of the woods. But also, there's some of us who came across also during, like you said, that particular Middle Passage. And there's much that could be said about that, and much could be said about the British, the Portuguese, like you would know in St. Lucia, the French. But a lot more need to be done to rebuild, so that we as a people collectively can kind of put the flags aside and recognize that we are one people. So the ambassador's, her vision is important, because here we are as a people, and especially for me as Rastafari, you know, when the Organization of African Union was started by His Majesty shortly after the World War, which you just spoke about. And by the way, it's a sad thing to hear you speak on the fact that there are people who would have experienced the unfortunate negative side of having to go on to war and survive, thank God. But to come home after you put your life on the line for the nation you represented, to now you can't even get the kind of assistance that you need, and it's a shame. And these are the kind of things that happen. And this is why Dr. Arikana is saying, you know what? Let us, not let me, which is the illusion of slavery. Let we as a people come together. Let's discuss some of our challenges. Let's find solutions rather than discussing problems. Let's focus on solutions and push and make our way forward. Barbados is hosting the first leg of her visit to the region, and it's an honor, quite frankly. But it's only right, seeing as how the ships, when they left, would have stopped in Barbados, I'm sure, first, and from there, they would have sent individuals across the region. And this is why he said that everyone that's in the region is a Barbadian, in the sense, because you came here first. So let us look at it as a reunion, and out of many, like Jamaica, we are really one people. So the doctor is looking to bring that together and forced us, and I wish to say force, but encourage us to look towards unifying, not just thinking about, going back to Africa, but in order to get there, we got to first start it here by emancipating our minds. So she's speaking a language that should make us all conscious and be proud of who we are as a people, who have survived. We are the survivors. We're not the descendants anymore. We are now the ascending generation to restore our legacy as people of the motherland.
Thank you, Brother Emmanuel. And of course, as he has pointed out, and as Ambassador Arikana pointed out, it makes us recall the decades-old songs by Peter Tosh and Bob Marley. No matter where you come from, you're an African. Yep. And when she says Africans have to come home, as our brother has just said from Barbados, the passage starts in our minds. The emancipation of our minds from the mental slavery that Bob Marley warned us to prepare for. And of course, Bob Marley was in Zimbabwe in 1980 for its independence, and he pioneered that connection because it was during his concert in Zimbabwe in 1980 that Africans from all over felt so free up that they just exploded, erupted, they were tear gassed, and that performance is one that everybody who was there will remember, because Bob Marley's song Zimbabwe was done precisely for that. And if you haven't heard it, YouTube, get it and listen to Zimbabwe. I go through that, Kofi, to talk about, to make the point that Adi is not saying to St. Lucians and Caribbean people, collect all your money and let's go to Africa. Even if Africa has enough room and resources to take all of us. So explain to us, give us a few background facts on what Adi expects to achieve in St. Lucia, like in Barbados and Antigua. What new are you bringing to the table, or what on the table has been there that has been covered and you're now uncovering?
Okay. So, Brother L, it's let me try and put this in context. In the Caribbean, we still live as small islands. And evidently, we struggle with resources we don't have. Just let me put this way. Just think of you have a bigger brother who lives not too far from you, but has been made to seem as if he's so far from you that you're unable to call on him and say, brother, I need help. This is the situation of Africa and the Caribbean. Your own brothers are just close by, but because of colonization, because of slavery, this wall has been placed between
artificial
barrier has been placed between us, such that it has grown to the point where we don't even like each other. We create all kinds of mystical things to divide us, but it's all by design, I must say. Unfortunately, as people, the education that we practice is geared towards continuously keeping that divide. Hence the reason why Brother Emmanuel said the idea of the emancipation, the idea of going to Africa starts from here. Okay, you have to unlearn some of these things that we have learned over the years that makes it very difficult for us to even transcend. Okay, so ADDI is saying, look, this is what we have to suffer all these years. The answer lies with us. Let's now work together as melanated people, because all around the globe we are disrespected for the same reason. If you live in Africa and you don't speak together with somebody who lives in the Caribbean, nobody knows whether you're from Africa, the Caribbean, or anywhere else. You're seen as black. Okay? So the same disrespect that would have been meted to somebody in Africa equally is meted to you in the Caribbean, because you are seen as the same person. Now, if we join forces, then your older brother who is on the continent, who has unlimited resources, is saying to you, brother, here I have it all. Why don't we join hands so that you can benefit from what I have? Because while you sit not knowing I'm here, with all the resources, somebody from the east, somebody from the north has seen it. And they are here constantly knocking on my door. ADDI is saying that the children of Africa in the diaspora, and that concept of the sixth region, forcefully tells us that for all of us living outside the continent, the resources out there are yours. But they're only yours when you can organize yourself mentally, spiritually, in every way, to be able to get access to it. Other than that, we will stay here lamenting and crying we don't have, when they say, like they say, there's a saying that your house is full of food but you're hungry. This is the case. So ADDI is saying, let's come together. This is a time as people around the globe, melanated people around the globe, let's come together and be able to take advantage of these resources, right? And so if we begin to look at ourselves in that regard, then we can begin to melt down some of these barriers. Because, I mean, I don't want to expose too much Sister Afia here, but she had the live experience of going to Africa. And she can tell you in part of this discussion, you know, the unbelievable things that you told when you're here and what you see on the ground, right? And so ADDI is saying this is a time for us to come together as brothers and sisters and benefit from the resources we have in Africa. The ambassador who has sacrificed her life so much, and I want to say that because when we see beyond the speeches that she gives, this woman is living a life of, you know, for all of us. She's a medical doctor. She's a grandmother. She's a wife, so she could as well stay at her home and enjoy her husband. She leaves Tennessee, where she's resided for the past 45 years, goes to Africa just to create opportunities for us. What she refers to as low-hanging fruits. What are low-hanging fruits? These are, you know, investment opportunities that we can all participate in. ADDI St. Lucia, just as ADDI in Barbados and so on, is to come up together so that we can collectively take advantage of some of these opportunities. We once spoke about these investments called the economy, the cryptocurrencies, the gold mines, and so on and so forth. There is also a program in Zimbabwe that creates it's a symbolic adoption of the group in a village in Zimbabwe that is adopting diasporans. So there are about 100 families, each of them adopts a diasporan. When you adopt it, you are given a parcel of land that you can erect your house on, you can farm on. All these things are avenues that are being created to accept the diaspora back into Africa. So, I mean, there's a lot being done, and all this are being facilitated by the ambassador. So she's gone beyond the rhetoric of just giving speeches. She's on the ground creating these linkages, these opportunities for us. So, I mean, her visit here, I want St. Lucians to understand, the ambassador could have been sitting and enjoying her retirement. She doesn't need any of what she's doing for us, but she's sacrificing her time, her life, so that we can also see we did something while we are alive for the generations to come. And it's important that St. Lucians take advantage of this. We are asking all of you to be members of ADDI. All you have to do is go on the website, register. At least you can register as a free, member, to start. And as you begin to get all the information, you then can register as a paid member and be open to all these investment opportunities. I don't want to take the win from, so I'll leave this. And
yes,
then,
I will be good because we have to take a break now. When we come back, before we go into the break, I just wanted to break down, if I could, to a St. Lucian audience, not that what Kofi said was difficult, but I was just trying to put it within a context because with over 40% of St. Lucians living between Castries and Grosley, I'm old enough to know of grandchildren of people who came up to Castries from Choiseul, Labrie, Vieux-Fort, Dennery, and Micoud. Came up to Castries for better opportunities, got opportunities, had children who have children now, and a granny who was left in Choiseul or Vieux-Fort or Micoud. You ask the grandchildren today, when last did you see your granny? Oh, it's been a long time because she's living right in Vieux-Fort, right in Choiseul, right in Labrie. All of that is less than an hour away by bus, by car, and therefore we have to eliminate those sort of false differences that are false barriers that are put. And what he's also saying too, I got the caricature in my mind of Ambassador Israeli saying to us, we were brought here to plant sugarcane and so on, and tea and all of that to send up to Europe as the final leg of the supposed Great Triangle. But what she's basically saying is that today we're no longer in chains, and we're planting cocoa and we're still exporting it, the raw cocoa, to go and buy chocolate and Milo. And she is saying, let's have a coup de main to take care of our cocoa estate and learn again to use our mush pillow to make chocolate and tax the minds of our young IT-minded young people who could find a St. Lucian solution to how do we go about making our own chocolate for St. Lucia and the Caribbean and the diaspora. When we come back, we'll be going to Altia Valmore, who will be telling us about these sort of opportunities that can be opened. And there's one that I like so much that I will make an input into it, and it is that as part of the new economy, continental diaspora economy that we are building, there is something called the Chiconomy. We take a break. When we come back, you'll hear about the Chiconomy.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join. Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP. The Good Food Revolution.
That's important.
Welcome back to our discussion in preparation for the regional visit by Ambassador Arikana Chihombori Ikwao. And we do not have much time. All good things come to an end, but this is not the end, it's just the beginning of the end. So in reverse order, we will go back to Barbados, and Brother Emmanuel, in 3 minutes, give us your final contribution. You're still muted.
There you go. Is it good now?
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Let me just put it this way, family. I think the best approach is to recognize there's a lot that the Caribbean has to unravel. And the brother mentioned it just now, Kofi, very, very, very important point. Education. You know, when most of us, if not all of us, was gifted, quote unquote, independence, it came with a curriculum and an educational system that we really didn't challenge. We kind of took it, the idea was to create servants, to produce individuals to work on the now freed plantation. And I use those words carefully. But the reality is, we really do have to unlearn some things and relearn some things. You know, we look at the television, when they show you Africa, they always show you the most impoverished places. They show you the children with the flies. I mean, you can't even take it. And they do this deliberately to kind of discourage you. I don't want nothing to do with Africa. I ain't know. But the reality is, that could be England, it could be America, it could be Canada. I mean, there's poverty all over the world. But as a people in the Caribbean who have been kept back for so long through a process of social engineering and arrested development, education right now is the most important thing as a people that we need to focus on. And so we have to unlearn some of the things that we were taught in error and relearn some things. And one of those things is that, you know, we have a place, we have a home. And by the way, it doesn't mean you have to leave, like you mentioned, the Caribbean and run over there and never come back. Perhaps some folks might be interested in doing so, and that's fine. But it also means that you could open up opportunities in terms of trading, in terms of developing ideas and business. Because if we sit back and wait for the master to keep feeding us, well, anyone that treats you wrong, that teach you wrong, will invariably feed you wrong. We got to find a way to develop food security, especially for ourselves and our family in the region. And developing that relationship with Africa is a good way to go about doing so, and building trust in order to rebuild the family. Like I said, slowly but surely we'll get rid of the flags and recognize we are one people. And like the brother Kofi said, it's just a brother from another mother across the water. You know? So like what you said, the solution for St. Lucia's, for the youths to come together, I think we got to focus on our young people, even so much more, and connect that bridge and allow, you know, the knowledge of the past, Saint Kofa, to inspire us to know where to go forward. You know, Bayete. I give thanks, my family.
And thank you, Brother Emmanuel. And we move. I will go to. Sorry, Sister Altia. We know the idea of the economy is part of. So let's put the economy within context.
I just want to start off with that in the 1950s and 60s, we had that great migration from the Caribbean to North America. It was seen as the grand place of opportunity, that to improve yourself and so on. Now we need to open our minds and realize that Africa is the new Mecca, the new place where there's the same sort of opportunities that you had. You went to the North America, Canada, England, and you went there, you gave your best, and you remained a second-class citizen. Whereas if you go to Africa, you become a first-class citizen. You blend in, you fit in, you feel so comfortable because the way people think, they behave, is just like you. So this, and then in addition, we also have to realize that you don't necessarily physically need to move to Africa. This is the new internet age. You are good at accounting. You can provide accounting services online to companies in Africa. So ADDI is a practical solution. It is about networking. It's about opening doors. It's about getting you introductions. One of the features that ADDI is promoting is a black database. So all the people with whatever skills you have, we have a central database. So when you're looking for people with technical skills for projects and for investments, you can go there and you can meet like-minded people, almost like the way you have those network websites where you're looking for a marriage. So you can link up with people who you can work with and you can do investments with. So ADI provides that, and in addition to that, ADDI has targeted certain types of investments. So for example, we are looking at gold mines, we are looking at the Chiconomy. We have identified 2 or 3 economic activities that we have mastered. And the model that we've created from the Chiconomy can be applied anywhere in the world. We would like to be able to establish it in countries where black people can either establish it themselves, own it, or have shares in it, so that they can promote the business of breeding and selling chickens in their own economy and not depend on imports. So ADDI is practical. It's not just a place where we talk about and dream about things. We actually make things happen.
Jackie, your final comments before we allow the President to close off.
Okay, well, I'll just say quickly that I'm very excited to be part of ADDI, and that as a cultural advocate, I would like to see cultural exchanges between the Caribbean and Africa. And Africa right now is really riding the wave in Afrobeats and the music that comes from Africa. Not just Afrobeat, but world music on the whole, because you have so many different countries in Africa, so many different cultures within Africa, that we, of course, have inherited some, but we also need to go back and see our connection and also where we have evolved here in the Caribbean in our music and bring it back to Africa. And I would really love to see that happen. And I'm looking forward to working with ADDI on a lot of these projects that you're talking about. I think there's a wealth of opportunity right now in Africa. When you look at Kenya and Rwanda and Zimbabwe and all these places, I mean, it's just amazing what is happening. So, solutions. Come out wherever. We're going to have the ambassador in her speeches, meeting her, talking to her, listening to what she has to say, and take time out from your busy schedules to do so.
And Kofi, how can St. Lucians, I almost said take advantage, but how can St. Lucians benefit from that visit? How do we get to see?
Okay, so
or is she just going to be on the TV or radio?
No. So, okay, I'm thinking of how to answer that question because there are quite a few things I want to mention before.
Okay, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so let me start.
Go ahead, and you'll close with what we can do.
Okay, so I will mention how St. Lucians can come and benefit seeing and interacting with her. We have planned a series of events. Among those are 2 main public events. We plan one for Castries and the other one for Grosile. On the 17th, that's when she gets here, we're hoping that we can have at least sometime in the evening. We're trying to coordinate now the time she reaches here because there are other plans in place, so that we can have that event maybe in a town hall where people can come and listen to her. So that'll be the first public appearance, talking to people. The second one will be the Friday, the 18th, which we've slotted for Grosile Human Resource Center, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's also another opportunity to, meet people, and she will also speak to the public from there. So we have arranged these 2 events so that St. Lucia can get the people can come in their numbers, see, ask questions, because Unfortunately, we only have 2 days. In fact, a day and a half, to be quite precise, with the ambassador. But, Brother El, let me quickly go on to one of the reasons
60 seconds.
Yes. One of the reasons why the ambassador is here. The ambassador is here because, or she's coming here because, as the 6th region, there's a reason why the African Union has 5 regions, the ECOWAS, the SADC, and so on. The 6th region represents all people of African descent around the globe. But as you know, we don't have a headquarters. So the pact, which should be taking place in Zimbabwe, is to decide on a few things. One, a pathway to citizenship from the 6th region into Africa, which enables you to do business without any hindrance. There's also the idea of creating the database, all right? There's also the idea of creating ambassadors to represent the Caribbean on the continent. So just like you have ambassadors of the ECOWAS on the AU, the 6th region will have ambassadors from the Caribbean and so on that. So the being in Zimbabwe is to bring our heads together to create, this slot for ourselves. So when this is taken to the head of states, they can agree that this is what the 6th region is asking for to integrate into Africa. Like I said, there's a lot more I could say, but time does not allow us. We ask that our viewers follow us up because we're going to have other shows on other media houses that we can probably expand on a little more of some of these things that we're talking about.
Avec avant nous aller, nous voulons tout ce que Lucien savent que tout ça nous a dit là, c'est puis semaine prochaine, jeudi, mercredi et jeudi, semaine prochaine, nous avons dit un grand madame qui est venu sortir Afrique, nous c'est ambassadeur Arikana Chihombori Kwao. Avec ici un grand madame qui a fait un chai pour Afrique, avec pour Caraïbes, avec pour tout le monde qui se descendant africain tout partout à sous la terre. Avec qui est venu cette ici pour 2 jours, il est allé Barbade, avec qui est Antigua, avec M. Kofi Dovo, il t'a invité nous pour écouter pour nous ça côté il mercredi, avec jeudi, il y a Gozile, un Human Resource Center Gozile. Alors mercredi, vendredi à Gozile avec jeudi à Castries. Alors, écoutez pour date là avec place là. We want to thank all of you for joining us today here and abroad, everywhere that people of African descent reside. That was a conversation for us, by us, between us, but for everyone. And as Kofi said, and our brother in Barbados reminded us, and as Ambassador Chihombori made the point, the idea is to prepare for a reconnection, a return of the diaspora to the homeland, and it starts in our mind where we have to liberate and emancipate ourselves from mental slavery to make that reconnection with Mother Africa. Thank you on behalf of our panel. Until next time, bye.
This is Nation Beat, a panel discussion series on matters of interest to you. We go beyond the headlines and sound bites to bring you in-depth discussions on everyday issues in politics, the economy, climate change, health, justice and security, entrepreneurship, youth development, innovation. The panel, the discussion, an objective and impartial view of the issues of interest to you. Nation Beat on NTN, cable channel 122, also on YouTube and Facebook. Join the conversation.